All right, and we're live to you. So tonight's show, I want to talk about ghost hunting. Man. People get so anal. You got to be a paranormal investigation, whatever you're talking about. Your thing, what you're into. People do it for different reasons. We tell people we in the ghost hunting community tell people not to go and delve into stuff that they may not really be ready for. But some people are drawn to it. They want more answers about life, right? Answers about life. When I got into it, I had a time. So I was on Long Island, in a terrible relationship. I'm sitting there in purgatory watching the Taps guys, these ghost hunters. So, so I'm like watching these dudes, and they're running around. It was kind of cool. It was the beginning of that type of television. They really were the first in the door, technically speaking, that brought the reality to the ghost hunting thing, not sensationalistic. There's a lot of other stuff out there, tripe, that was faked, sensational, whatever. Just the real brass roots ghost hunting, and then ultimately, they taps got polluted, and they had to produce for their television audience, and they weren't really the type of people that could produce. I have to say, out of doing over 100 investigations, there's not one that we ever went into ever that didn't have something going on. But we were also called into these places, or recommended to these places, you know, because there was activity going on there. So, as a private investigator and as somebody who just has me a scientific mind, but I also have a huge spiritual side, of course, and I had my own experiences with seeing apparitions of a cat, for instance, of the cat, a family cat that was put down, and then I was outside, and I swear to God, I saw the thing running past me, just this smoky, pulsing figure just run right past me, and it looked like him, and he had a kind of a nubby tail, you know. So, and then after that, I was a teenager, young teen. After that, like this cat would be forever sitting on top of the microwave. Like as you walk into the kitchen, there was like a microwave cart with a microwave, and then I would tell the cat to get down. He would jump down, whatever, and then he got used to me telling him to get down. And every time he saw me, he would jump down. And many times I walked in and I saw that smoky figure, and then jump down. I kind of disregarded it, you know. And then, I don't know, months later, I was talking to my mom, that shared the experiences with her, and then she said that she had seen similar things. And then also, like one morning, she was feeding the other cats. We had three cats at that time. She was feeding two cats, and then she had heard the other one kind of like a muffled meow coming from under the kitchen table, and there was no cat there, and even the other cats looked. So you hear things like this, and you experience things like this, and you know that there's something else out there, in the world, in the universe, that we ourselves are part of. This is our life. Life is temporary, right? But spirit is forever. Life is temporary though, but energy doesn't die. So I got into it. I wanted to have a paranormal experiences. I wanted to have a conversation. I got into it. Peter Canellis reached out to me. I had put an ad out in Craigslist looking for ghost hunters who are interested in documenting it on video. And Pete had contacted me. We met at the TV station I was at that time as a producer and then he and I went out. I mean, and locally, we did two investigations like within a week, and then one was at the Hangar Theater in Ithaca, which used to be a hangar, airplane hangar, and an airport. And apparently this mechanic had died and was haunting the building. People would see him, see the apparition backstage and whatever. So we were called in, you know, and went in there and got something unbelievable and unbelievably different from the intention that we went in. At that time, we only had some cameras that were provided by the television station, good ones, digital video cameras, but not infrared or anything like that. Pete had some like security lights infrared, which is kind of funny, like really brer nuts, like all that. They had dowsing rods, and I had never experienced dowsing rods before, and I didn't, the jury was out of my mind. I knew people that used people to find water on their property with dowsing rods and things like that, and they were always right. And they were the people they went to. And Pete's grandmother was that person in the county that if you needed to find water on your property, you contacted grandma, and she was out there, and boom. And then she had passed away, and at the after at the wake, Pete was there and took her dowsing rods, and he said he never had any kind of luck using them in the past, and all of a sudden they started working for him. And then, man, we use those things in a lot of investigations, and I think every last one. And I had come to rely on them for those yes and no answers, and also to guide and find things, because they were always right. And I was trying to trick them up all the time. I was trying to trick them. I'd hide stuff, in these places. I get, can you find it? Show me where it is. Yeah, every time, man. So anyway, but so that investigation, I can't go into too many details about it because it involved the daughter of somebody that I know, and then they had died in a DWI accident, just down the road. Now, I knew that, and I went into this place kind of looking for her because, you as a spirit, a lot of them go back, if they're confused or whatever, they go back to the last place that they knew. And I had suspected that, it made sense to me that was the case anyway. So we had Pete had found something in the corner of the building, inside the building. I mean, as we were doing a sweep going on through, the dowsing rods kept pointing at just this corner, concrete wall, nothing there. There was nothing there, just an empty corner. And he said he had known about the girl and the accident, but he didn't know any other details. And it turns out she hit the guardrail, the car flipped upside down, and she drowned in the water that was in the gully. She couldn't get out of the car. So, and as we're asking these questions, Pete doesn't know that she drowned. He just knows about the motor vehicle accident. But so I started asking her these probing questions, and I had a lot of information on her name and what her history, the whole bit. Also, all the private information. It answered yes to all the stuff I was saying. And I said, "Did you die after you left here?" And it said yes. And it said, "Did you, die in a car accident?" It said yes. And then when I said, "Did you drown?" And then Pete made a face. It was kind of funny, like, "Huh? Like what?" And then before he could even basically react, the dowsing rod said yes. And I explained to him that, the one damn time there was water in that one gully, the runoff ditch is what it is, because we had a ton of rain. That's what happened. Otherwise, she probably would have survived. But she had been there, and then the people there said that she was drinking that night and whatever, and then that was that. But that proved something to me, and that was the first conversation I had through those dowsing rods. So I wanted more. I wanted a hell of a lot more. I wanted to have a real conversation. I wanted to have evidence. I wanted to see pictures, man. I just don't want, I want real stuff. We turned into the picture kings for a minute there, and also EVPs, freaking unbelievable EVPs. We were having conversations, on-running conversations with spirits, going back and forth. The only people in the room were Peter and I, an 9,000 square foot building, and right there you're hearing that conversation. And I'm going to play some of these EVPs for you tonight. When you hear the EVP, you know what it sounds like. You know how it sounds. And then this was just done with my little simple, look at this, Olympic. I still have it, man. I always use it. My Olympic recorder. This thing's got a full frame diaphragm to record. Records at very low and high frequencies, and that's what I wanted. I wanted something very open and wide to catch any kind of contact, any kind of sound. So, what is a voice? A voice is something that we make, air, larynx, and whatever, a vibration through the air, right? And then when people say, "Well, these spirits have no body," they have no body, but they have a presence, and that presence can create that type of energy, especially if they try to manifest themselves with the surrounding things. Like if it's hot out, people have talked about cold spots happening, and then a lot of people believe that that's them trying to manifest themselves and using the thermal energy to do it. So anyway, that was that investigation, the Hangar Theater, and the second investigation was was that Taylor house that we did, and we went back there a few times, man, and it was crazy. But I'm gonna play you some stuff. I'm just gonna go through everything, kind of. I'm just gonna go through everything, man, tonight on the show because we're getting back into it. We're getting back into the ghost hunting. We had both taken a few years off, and I wasn't gonna get back in unless it was real time investigation. Like I want to go live and then do real time conversations, real time investigations with real spirits. And I have a way of doing it. I've developed a device where I can listen and go live with that recording, where it doesn't feed back on the device itself. So I mean, we can really have that conversation, and I believe in that. So also, I'm using facial recognition software, just to recognize the face, just to bring it out, if there's one there. So, like electronically, there's a lot of things that just make systems more sensitive, and that's what you want. Because when you have a conversation with someone like that, it's got to be sensitive, like the equipment. So this is back in the day, Wayside Pub, upstate New York, crazy place, man. History back to the early 1700s. That was just a wand mic, plain old with Pete's box there. I mean, this is, what, we grew to the point where we like had 20 cameras, hunting cameras that had those real fast trigger PIR sensors. So if something happened within a quarter of a second, the thing is recording, running video, or it's taking a series of pictures. I like both. I like video. I like a series of pictures. If you have 12 pictures in a row that are taken just 5 seconds a piece, or even 1 second a piece, I got some that are gonna blow you away, man. I like to go into a room. I have a full spectrum camera, and I like to just shoot. Boom, 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 boom. I take 5 pictures every time I walk into a room. 5 pictures, man. I turn around, I take 5 pictures. Sometimes they're following you and they're right over your shoulder, they're right behind you. You take a picture over your shoulder. I've done that and gotten some interesting results. So yeah. So that's just Pete sitting at the table at Wayside Pub as we were starting to get into it. And that picture behind him had been thrown off the wall multiple times at patrons when they're sitting at the bar across the room. They just launches. They bolted it in, and it still fell off the wall. So yeah, that place had some crazy stuff. There's Pete messing around, getting involved in someone's Halloween decoration that we do, and we did a what we call a crossing of just a seance, or whatever you want to call it, getting rid of bad stuff or getting rid of stuff or helping people cross over at that time, and we were kind of just provoking right there. This barn actually was the same barn that John Dillinger had hid out in up in Ontario County in Canandaigua, and they arrested him there. The sheriff's department caught him, and they put him in jail in Ontario for a bit. And it's also where the Mormons came from. And Pete is dowsing your eyes, looking all chilling, badass, hearing something, man. Those dowsing rods were amazing. There's me taking off some goggles, man. We only use red lights when we move through a place, and we use just infrared. You know, me again in the Erie Mansion up there, kind of feeling things out. This was the summer bedroom of the woman that owned the mansion after she had killed her husband. That was all the account at the time, but nothing ever happened to her. But he had owned the Clyde Glassworks, and she inherited that multi-million dollars for the early 1900s. These people were like truly the wealthy people out there. This was in Clyde, New York. So, and my friend owns the mansion now, the Erie Mansion. It's a bed and breakfast. It's still very, very, very active with a lot of bad stuff. But so this photo came from this guy David that we know. He moved into a new apartment in Ithaca, New York, and he said that his uh, his keyboard keeps typing by itself. It doesn't type anything out, but he hears the clickety click click click. Then he saw some speaker wires floating, just floating up in the air and being dropped down again. And then he starts seeing these shadowy shadow figures around his apartment. He lived there with his 80-year-old mom. She had a different bedroom, and they're at opposite sides of the apartment. But so we put a hunting camera in his bedroom that was just a Remington camera, hunting camera. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't infrared, nothing like that. But I was playing around with lighting, and I used an ultraviolet light, big UV bulb. We put in a mechanic's drop light, and then just kind of plugged it in on one side of the room, and that was shining against this whole area. And I think that helped. That spectrum of light helped bring this entity out. So you can see this picture. I mean, this is when the guy saw the picture after we had gone through the evidence and we went back there. He turned pale, flipped out, and he said that was his aunt, and she had died a few years back before this. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what's with the box? And she's holding this box, and then he's like, she was always into these rosewood boxes, and then always put like special things in them for people and whatever. So you can see the way she's dressed. I mean, this is a full blown apparition. You can see that. I mean, only thing people can say is, "Oh, you Photoshop and whatever." I don't even know how to use Photoshop. And then, why would I want to? If I was going to fake investigations, I'd have stuff flying around, knocking people on the head. It wouldn't be like from a picture. But this was, and I'll show you another picture with her, which is really like, wow, with Peter in the picture, actually. So, but you can see the blinds, and you can see that the pasty face and whatever. This dude whipped out a picture of her from the late 1950s, and this was her in the 50s. This was the same hairline, the same long thumbs. Look at the thumbs, really long and thin, and you say to yourself, "Wow!" And I said to Pete, "I'm like, look at these. Are these real? He's real." I'm like, "What's the deal?" And he was like, "Wow." We were both. This was our third investigation. We were both blown away completely. The gown thing that she's wearing and whatever, blown away, right? Let me get another one. This Pete. All right, so let me set this one up. I know I'm skipping around. I'm going to go back to that other photo when the other photo comes up. This was in the Taylor house that we had went into. Big 9,000 square foot building. Used to be used as a tenement. At one time, we had met the owner, and he gave us carte blanche to go in there and do what we did. We had found a young child back in this back room on the second floor. He was on the tape, on a tape, on the recording, saying his name. I said, when I asked probing questions, can you say your name and whatever, and the time you come from and whatever. Like I try to hit on things, especially from the time that I think someone passed away. At this point, we had not known that there was a young kid in this place, and then later on in the was it next? I think it was the next investigation. The owner had sent a couple of local people there that lived down the block that knew the history of the building and knew the history of the area. They said, we didn't say anything about a kid. They said a kid had gotten killed out the street, run over by a car, who was only like maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years old, whatever it was. But and he said his mom lives down the block, and it had happened like 25 years previous. So anyway, this was the kid. We referred to him as Cahill because that's the name he said. that was on the tape and on the recording, and we refer to this as Little Boy's room or Cahill's room. And so we had to do this thing with a flashlight. With us, we like to anything that we can manipulate to the point where it doesn't take much to turn something on or turn something off. It doesn't take much to make a detection. I look for intelligent conversations. I don't want some words spit out at me like those ITC devices that basically scan radio stations, and of course they're going to spit out all kinds of crap. Nothing like that. I want just a blank canvas, and I want to communicate with what's there. I want to know who they are, why they're there, where they came from, and why they're still there. There's a whole bunch of of questions. So with the flashlight, we've gotten very very lucky with that. We've used it. I've gotten it to go on and off as I ask. It's not going to do it if we don't. It's just a very sensitive switch on the back. So, but you can see for yourself. I don't think I can play the audio on this thing. Well,
as hard as you can, it'll go on. It'll turn right on.
Let me start that over.
Can you do that first?
Oh, never mind. All right.
You touch the back, you're saying yes. If you touch the back of it, or touch it, as hard as you can, it'll go on. It'll turn right on. Can you do that first? Try as hard as you can.
Shit.
There it goes.
As soon as you asked for it.
Yeah.
That was like I'm in demand.
Caleb, can you turn it off now?
Oh,
That was great.
that was right on command.
Caleb, that's great.
That was awesome.
Can you turn it back on again, Caleb? It's doing it. There it goes.
There it goes.
Do it as hard as you can, bud. As hard as you can.
Fine.
There it goes. Cahill, you're great.
That's pretty good.
And this is the funny thing that floor rock solid. They built those buildings to last. This was building from the late 1800s. And there was nothing that would have made that flashlight go on and off. It wouldn't do it by itself. We started using lights with PIR sensors. What PIR sensors is a motion sensor and really sensitive. Some PIR sensors will activate after a second, like when something crosses in front of it. After like 1 second, it'll activate. I want the ones that are less than a quarter of a second. And you can find them, and we started using those for investigations and kind of covering hallways and areas. If something had moved, something had shifted, it's not going to go off from any other reason than motion. We also started using these dolls that if there's a younger entity, we started using these like it was a teddy bear and a doll, and if you touch it, it was a kinesthetic. If you touch it, it would activate, but you had to touch it to manipulate it. You couldn't yell at it. You couldn't stomp near it. You had to physically touch it. And then we've had amazing luck with stuff like that. I could play you one of those videos too. But so I mean, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around it as you're doing it and having these conversations, with disembodied people, especially as you're hearing them talk to you, and then in the Taylor house there was one time, I got a response to every question. And then I'm thinking like, am I just freaking hearing things, man? Or is it just me that's receptive? Because we were working with a great medium that lived up in Groton, New York. She was older. She didn't come to any investigations with us. She just kind of gave us advice, on what to protect how to protect ourselves. Really, that was her advice, And she said, the more investigations that you do, the more sensitive you're going to become. And then ultimately, you have to kind of really be careful as you dip in. And every investigation is different. But the one thing that's constant is like, I always felt like we were building a bridge to the other side. And that bridge can be a dangerous place for a lot of reasons. But it always took me a few days to shake it off, like you feel weird. You just feel weird. It's very hard to explain unless you've been through it and unless you kind of dipped in like that. And Pete, like, we had a lot of mediums telling us that like the spirits follow him around. He's special. He's a special person, man. And then they said there's a whole bunch that just follow him around, and and that me, I don't think they want to deal with the drama in my life. I had a demon to be running out of here crying. You know, let me go get another one. So anyway, let me move. That's the Hangar Theater with my Jeep and Pete. So this one also from David's apartment. Now, there's David. You clearly see the person in that photo ain't David, and there's me there with a little full spectrum camera. Had a guy in Lithuania make me this camera. I found him on eBay, and he had opened it up to where as much light could get in from all the spectrums, a full spectrum camera. We could only see a couple different spectrums, and then you need infrared cameras and whatever to see the rest. This was a hunting camera that we had set up in the corner of the room. This big cloudy thing up there was some kind of entity. At that time, the dog, David, had these two little chihuahuas, was barking in the corner, barking at the direction of this camera, and the camera was up on the shelf. I'm 6'5", so you can see me towering over all this other stuff, but this was the kind of thing David was seeing floating around his apartment. Pete had put in fact, there's a hunting camera right there. Pete had put that hunting camera. That was there for quite a while. He left it there for days just to catch things. Got things floating back and forth. We even got the guy's cat. They said he had a cat named Solo Meow, and the cat had passed away. They see the cat running around the apartment. All this was around Christmas. All this was around the Christmas holiday, and we had gotten probably every thing that could happen in an investigation that's positive. Like, I'm not talking about being scratched or pushed down the stairs or something like that, but everything that's positive happened in that investigation. And at one point, the whole room filled full of fresh roses. And I asked David. I mean, I know he had these fake flowers up here, and I'm like, you got any air fresheners that that release a smell every few seconds, or something like that, every minute or two, they give a spray, something like that. He said, no, nothing. And the whole room, when I started smelling those roses, like it really smelled like fresh roses, I said to Pete, who was across the room, I'm like, do you smell something? And then he sniffed the air, and he's like, yeah. He's like, I smell roses, like fresh roses. And everybody started smelling the fresh roses, And then David said that his grandmother would always have fresh roses in the house. They always had beautiful. They lived in California. They had access to all kinds of beautiful stuff like that a lot of times a year. And it was important for her to have that. So, and that's how they communicate sometimes. That's how they let you know that they're there. They give you that scent. Their scent is something that you're going to hit on and something that you're going to identify and know, to know that you're there. But that big shadowy thing, yeah, that was interesting. But here's Pete and I digging outside the Erie mansion because the guy, the head spirit, let's just say the head spirit. Let's just say that Bill Ely, who was the one that we were communicating with, who was a serial killer who killed a lot of people in that building and whatever, he had said he buried somebody in the front lawn. So I said to Mark, is it okay if we go dig up your lawn outside? Because there was a little window in the basement the guy used to shove these bodies out of and then put them in the car, because that was a driveway at that time. Put them in the back of his trunk, take them down to the Erie Canal, and dump the body in the canal. That was, the cops said, all right, the day the cops came to arrest him for all these murders, that they finally got, enough evidence against him, because the family was very powerful, controlled all the local officials, all of that. They came and they found him hanging dead in the basement. Bill Ely had killed himself. So that's where we went. I'm going to play you an EVP from that basement, because when we were down there, we had heard tales that he abducted a young girl from Pennsylvania as he was coming through from the city, and these people had all the money. This is the early 1900s, but they had the the best cars of the time and whatever. They would go down to the Waldorf Astoria and stay down there for a month or two and that type of thing, So it was like that. And when I was in the basement, we were doing our investigation. It was like 3:30 in the morning, something like that. Everything was real quiet. Uh, Mark was the only one in the mansion besides us. He was way upstairs, 12,000 square foot mansion. We're downstairs in the basement in the area that they found him hanging. And Mark has one of his assistants, one of the people that worked there, had seen an apparition of somebody that was hanging. Also, there was a torture kind of closet room with these chains and these hooks in the walls, and this guy Bill Ely would put people in there and torture them, and we had like just amazing experiences messing around with that too. But I could play you that. But anyway, we did find a bone fragment from what we believe was a skull, and one of my friends who was a dentist, I showed it to. He was an army dentist though, and he identified it. And he said, "Yeah, it's bone fragment." He said it doesn't have to be human. It wasn't a big enough bone fragment, and I wasn't interested in having it tested and paying for that, whatever. But yeah, we did find something. So if you want to get technical, so this is us. This is Pete going over the site. People were walking past. We're up at 2:00 in the morning, digging a hole in the guy's front lawn, and people are walking past, like looking at it, like, "What the hell?" That's right, man. What the hell is right? So this from the Erie Mansion. This was that room. We call it the alligator room because Mark has it decked out with all these alligators, baby alligators, other alligators. There's a baby coffin in the middle of the room. Yeah, he's got that kind of motif. I took 5 pictures. Out of the 5 pictures, 2 pictures had faces. This face, this is Bill Ely. We have a picture of him. This is his face. This is him. His nose, his mouth, his chin. This is his face. He had killed multiple women that were prostitutes in the house, and then we believe that we had caught another one. In this photo, and I see this woman's face. There's nothing, by the way. There's nothing in this window. The window is black. Boom, 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 boom. There's nothing in the window. There's nothing to make this this shape or nothing. This is just something that the other photos had nothing. Well, the 5 windows, they had nothing. So that's just something there. This is from the Taylor house. So Pete had originally went to the Taylor house with his brother and sister because they have their own ghost hunting group, Finger Lakes Ghost Hunters, And then Pete had said he got a 42-minute EVP of a male and a female by yelling at each other. And they said the guy was like kind of preaching, sounds all God stuff and Bible stuff, and the girl was like, whatever. And then at the end of it, you heard like a rough and tumble, boom, 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 boom. And that was it, right? So we had caught this image. This image is actually a reflection. All right, so this is the front door. This whole thing is a doorway to the front of the building. This is the glass in the front door. Where this girl is standing is behind a wall. You see there's a wall there. It's the reflection of them trying to avoid us. But we had a hunting camera way down the hall, like 30 feet away, just on a tripod to capture anything that went on. We weren't in the area when this photo was taken. We were down the hall, and then that she was kind of looking over where we were, and there was only 3 of us, and we were all together the entire time. And we had locked the door after we had come in, so we know nobody was going to be kind of coming in or bothering us, following us, or whatever, And Cindy Thompson, psychic medium, I had met her a week previous at a psychic fair in Auburn, New York, right? Pete and I went there just to kind of poke around and just do our thing. And then I said, yeah, we're doing an investigation of this place in a couple of days over Clyde area, Lions. It was actually Lions. And she's like, oh, I don't live too far from there. I'm like, hey, you want to come, come to the investigation, check it out, and tell me what you think. We're making like a show out of it, So she agreed. She met us there. She knew nothing about the history of the building, nothing about anything that we had, no information. As soon as she walked through the front door, she said, "A girl died right here." I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "The girl died. She fell down the stairs and died." Because the stairs were really like steep, you know, and there was a balcony up there that you could go right over. If you went over that balcony, you're falling a good 10, 12 feet before you even hit the stairs and fall the rest of the way. So she said she died right there. During the investigation, I had 3 mediums there that night. During the investigation, we one of the mediums had gotten like almost taken over on the second floor as we were trying to contact Cahill, and then this other spirit came over and he got into her, and then she started using his voice, talking like him. I had never seen that before, and I didn't think she was messing around because she wasn't even that type. She was very serious about what she did, and she didn't seem right. There was something off about her completely doing that, and didn't feel right. And then something had thrown a nail at us. We had walked into a room and it threw the nail right at us, like hit between Peter and I, and we had all heard it and had pating and looked on the ground and the nail was moving. That was interesting. But so after that had happened, Tammy was the psychic that happened to. I'm like, let's go outside. She had. This was interesting too. She had freaked out. And she's like, "Oh, I gotta get out of here! I gotta get out of here!" By the way, you can see all these investigations on my YouTube channel. Discovery Paranormal, Michael. Or Michael Angley. YouTube/Michael Angley or Michael Angley Live, whatever. I'll get you there. But she said, "I gotta get out of here! I gotta get out of here!" Cindy and I are over by the stairs, and Peter's over by the stairs too. He's by the entrance of the stairs that goes down. She's bouncing around. She's like, "I gotta go out." She tried going up to the attic and those stairs, and we stopped her from doing that. And she's like, "I gotta get out of here." She almost went over that banister and fell down the stairs, So that was really crazy, that part of it. But then Peter had walked her downstairs and walked her outside. I stayed behind with Cindy Thompson and her daughter, and then we're provoking that entity that did that to her. That Cindy said he's a preacher. He's some kind of preacher. Everything she said linked up to the other evidence that we had in that place. That he's a preacher. There was a preacher there. This was the house across from the big church. This is where a lot of churchy people had lived back in the early 1900s. It's plausible. But at one point in the investigation, I went up to that attic with Peter at the end of the investigation, just he and I, to provoke that dude. And I was whipping around holy water. Pete whipped out some holy water and went, "Let's go for it, man." So I'm like, "Yo, yeah, ho." Anyway, so after we're outside, Tammy's out there grounding herself on the ground. She's laying on the ground. That's how you ground yourself, man. It's electric, right? And you got to ground yourself and get that off of you. So she's doing that. The rest of us are all on the front porch, large porch. Everybody's talking about our experiences, and we had already been there a couple hours, and all this stuff has gone on, So about 25 minutes later, we all started going back inside, and I wanted all the psychics to go into the area that they built as a community center, big kind of arena type of thing with a stage and whatever, because that was the best energy in that whole place. Go in there and then take those entities, and anybody who wants to leave can leave, can just go. And while we provoked the preacher who was apparently keeping people there. That's what the story was that these mediums told me and what we all put together. When we walk back inside, I'm back in the door. I got the camera in my hand. The camera's rolling. Open the door. You can clearly hear some girl going like, I still don't know what that tune is. And then she actually goes la 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 like that. And when I listened to that later on, I was like, "Oh my God, that's crazy." That wasn't me. That wasn't any. I was the first one through the door, and then the rest of them were maybe 6 or 7 feet behind me. So that was interesting in of itself. But anyway, then the mediums went into that area. The community center. Peter went upstairs with me, and the rest is history. There's the flashlight again. That's the Erie Mansion. Beautiful building. It really is. This building was bombed out, fired out. It was a tenement for a long time. 12,000 square foot building divided into apartments and whatever. Mark was driving past. He was in this thing where he was buying homes for cash. You know, he did very well because at that time houses didn't cost that much. He saw this place, and I think he's put about $1 million into the place since. The first time that we went in there was around 11 years ago, and he was up to about 700,000. And on top of that, he's got all these mysterious antiques from all over the world, hand carved stuff and whatever. And he himself admits there's not a cozy spot in the entire mansion, you know, because that's the way it feels, man. If you've ever, you should go there and stay there. It's a bed and breakfast. I mean, he's pretty fair about things. He's got some beautiful. They're all suites, so he's got some beautiful suites, you know. But this is us doing that seance. That was pretty cool. Something howled and roared and whatever, and all these people got flipped out. Even the guy, even that dude, he had like a pentacle tattooed to his head. So this was a cool thing. This was I see somebody in this photo, and this actually came from a hotel, and it's now an Elks Lodge. But I don't want to talk about that. That's me in the investigation, doing my thing, looking around. Here we go. Listen to this. So this was the basement of the Erie Mansion. We're doing our sweep. I thought I heard a young girl go, huh. That's all I heard. Huh, huh, just like that. It wasn't Pete. It wasn't me. I know exactly what sounds we make. We were very careful not to make unnecessary noises in the investigation. And then I heard that, huh. When I heard that, huh, I said, are there any girls that here want to come forward? When I said that, that's when you hear this dude, leave that girl alone. And very clear, right in between Peter and I talking, you can hear our voices. You can hear this dude's voice. Let me go back. There ain't nothing in that basement that would have made that nothing. It wasn't Pete, it wasn't me. You know, we were just kind of right where the guy had hung himself, right in that area, and I believe a lot of his center of his energy was there, especially after he had tortured people down there, he had killed people down there. So a lot of the stuff that he did was there in that basement. Make sure we got enough time for this. We'll do one more time. If you know EVPs, you know that's what they can sound like. That's for sure. But we had some from the Taylor house that you're gonna hear, and it's just very clear as a bell, you know. And that person I was in contact with at the Taylor house at that point was I believe there was some kind of deception going on, and they kept saying we got one EVP was like, Cahill loves you, Cahill wants to go home with you. When you hear that as an investigator, you leave the investigation. It's already 4 or 5 o'clock, 6 in the morning, whatever the hell it is. By the time you get home, you can't just go to bed. You have to listen to you. You got to look at your pictures. You got to go do stuff. You got to check this out. So you're not going to be checking it out for the next few hours, right? And then you start hearing all these things and like experiencing these things, and you know that it's for real because you were there doing it, you know, and having these conversations. But when you hear an entity say, I want to, take this kid home. He wants to go home with you. A lot of the times, that's not a kid. A lot of times, it's a total deception. That's some kind of evil thing that wants to come with you, or whatever, man. There's a lot of that, So one of Mark's staff members, this chick, she came with us because she had a few experiences there in the mansion, and then so we used her as like a familiar, that could reach out if they're used to her or used to talking to her or whatever. We're in the summer bedroom, which is connected to the alligator room, and that was Eugenia, the serial killer's mom. That was her bedroom, right? The summer bedroom, and which was a very active place. So, so she Pete's dowsing rods had cornered some kind of entity that was on the bed, big one of those four-poster type of beds with a canopy, right? He's pointing at that. This chick's like, talking to this young child spirit. I'm feeling it ain't no kid. I'm not feeling it's a kid at all, as a matter of fact. I wasn't feeling that type of energy. Once you get used to doing these and you run into these entities, man, you get used to the levels of energy that you can compare later on of how you feel about the whole thing. So anyway, she's like, oh, you poor little girl, you can come home with me. And Pete and I are like, no, 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 don't ever do that. And then she's like, it's okay, I know what I'm doing. She's very arrogant about it, as a matter of fact. It's okay, I know what I'm doing. Okay. I'm somebody that if I say no, and then immediately you tell me that I'm an idiot, I'm going to say, okay, do what you got to do. Life is learning lessons. You know what I mean? Do what you got to do. And then, long story short, within 24 hours, her television started working by itself. Her lights were flashing on and off at her house. And she had a Rottweiler, and it was chained up in the backyard. She had went to the backyard. Something startled it. It took off. The chain went across her neck, across her shoulder bone, and broke her shoulder blade, and put her in the hospital. So within 24 hours of inviting this entity into the place. So, it's not lost on me that these situations can, like the medium would say, make sure when you leave, surround yourself with white light. Make sure that white light's going all through you. St. Michael's pair can't hurt. And you tell those entities to stay there. Stay there. Here we go. So you hear that. The little boy is here. So this was when Pete and I were first looking for Cahill, and we went. This was after we had his name and whatever. We had come back. We go into the room that we called Cahill's room, little boy's room, and then I'd asked for him to come forward, and then this other voice came into play saying, "Little boy is here." We've gotten this voice other times, and we got a ball to roll, and it's crazy. I didn't even see it because we had put the ball down. We had walked away from it. We asked if they could roll the ball. We kind of looked at it for a couple of minutes. We walked away, came back. The ball was rolled to the other side. So we didn't have a camera on. We didn't see it. And I'm like, damn, But yet it was in a different place when we left it. So, but you can hear this EVP very, very clear. You can hear Peter and I's voice compared to this. This wasn't. We don't whisper. He doesn't whisper. We don't. He doesn't talk like that. I don't talk like the little boy is here. I can't even say that. The little boy is here. My mouth won't let me do it. So, but why didn't Cahill come forward himself? And the mediums told us that he was being controlled, and that he was being held back. That this entity. Here's one for you. Peter had went back. Peter's friend had come to town, and this is after we had done all the stuff at the Taylor house, and really didn't have an intention on going back. But so Pete goes up there just with his friend to show them around, and he's doing EVPs and whatever. And then he gets home, and then starts listening, and he's like, where is where is so and so, whatever, calling out, and a voice was like, they're all gone thanks to you. That's what it said. They're all gone thanks to you. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy, man. The little boy is here.
So yeah.
Crazy, right? You gotta hear with this one. I still don't know what this thing says. Something to the left, it sounds like K-pop is to the left. K-pop, something to the left, but you can see our rhythms of our voice and how loud we are compared to this EVP. I mean, we can barely hear it. And this is all with my Olympus recorder. All this stuff, my Olympus recorder, which was mounted on the camera. So yeah, man. When you're hearing disembodied voices and having intelligent reaction, that's what I wanted. I wanted to have the experience. Now I want to see them right there face to face, and I want to be able to have that live conversation. And I think that I can do it. I think that I've got enough everything together for Peter and I, and we've learned a hell of a lot from doing all these investigations. You know what I mean? And everyone's different, but a lot of them have similar things. So here's a little apparition. That's the stage area in in and this had good energy. The stage area in the Taylor house, and that was just something that in the 5 pictures I took, this was the one picture that had this kind of face, and I definitely see a face, you know. So, but like people float their evidence to me sometimes. I don't think I'm any kind of an expert. I don't even believe in experts when it comes to this because it's been trial and error and the things you've experienced. I guess you could say there's a level of learning and understanding in there. Like orbs, and most orbs are bugs or dust, and they're easy to see because they have a little speck in the center, and that speck is being refracted, and they're usually using like a flash for things like that. I try not to use flash anything with a flash, especially with a full spectrum camera. I definitely don't do any of that. But even the other cameras that I use, I really try not to. This was the Erie Mansion, and this was that dude looking at us as we were leaving. I'm convinced of that. There was nothing in this photo before. That was just black. The candlelight, the fake candle for the holiday type of thing. But there's let's just put it this way. It's weird. In the relationship I was at the time, she didn't believe in the ghost hunting. She didn't want any part of it. Was opposite of her world, which is fine. And but I had told her about Billy Ely and the story and the whole bit. Not long after that, after we had done the investigation and we had done this big circle, we went there on Halloween, did a Halloween thing with a whole bunch of people, and I had these great mediums there. Nicole Berard Wright was there, and who else was there? Tammy was there, and a whole bunch of people. Anyway, and then we had a voice box, and it was just a box that turns electronic energy, radio waves, whatever, into phonetic words, and it's very limited in what it could say, even though it was cursing me out with the F word, and it wasn't even programmed like that, which was interesting. But my point was to distract Bill Ely until they could cross over who they had to cross over. And then, it got very interesting very quickly, and there was a lot of people there witnessing what was going on. So this was after we were leaving that night. And let me see. This was cool. This was you see these things kind of floating around. This is a grave from way back in the day. back to the from Sullivan's March. So we believe it was like 1872, and that's basically what you see in there on that date. But and that person says bones, right? And these look like bones. These it wasn't cold out. It wasn't nobody was smoking. It was just Peter and I. I had just taken a picture of the grave. It was where Sullivan's March came up the lakes, the Finger Lakes, killing all the Indians, But there was a lot of Amish around there too, and Mennonites. Anyway, you get off of that. There's the girl again. There's Pete. He was got ghosts. This was David's apartment, and then this is an orb that I found was always interesting because it doesn't look like any orb that I had seen with a bug or dust. No raindrop, of course. You can see in this place. Yeah, I was using the flash. There's no orb anywhere else. Usually, if you see orbs, especially dust, there's a multiple. But this is where we had contacted David's friend who had hung himself. The guy killed himself. He slashed his wrists, and then he hung himself on someone's lawn. They were out of town, for that time. It was during Halloween, and then the people who lived in the area thought it was some kind of elaborate Halloween decoration, and they realized after a bit that it was a guy who actually hung himself. Ithaca, New York, but this guy was friends with David, and he had a message for David. And when Pete was, we were all talking to him. That's where the dude was, and we did a cool thing with a flashlight too, and that was wild. You can see that online too. But there's Peter and I doing our thing. That's Cahill's room. That's us taking readings, just video claptrap. Discovery Paranormal. This I thought was cool because this is funny. This was in the Hangar Theater. I had taken this picture. When I saw it, I was like, Pete, I think we got something, man. We got some cool stuff. Because, man, look at this dude. It looks like a dude with his elbow out or whatever. And I went back to retake the picture. You know what? It was like 3 images all in one. There was a whole bunch of stuff piled up on the shelf, like linens or something like that, something to do with the theater or whatever. This was part of a hanging basket up on the ceiling, a light, a basket light. So it was really like 3 different images in one, which I always thought was cool. I kept it because I just think it's cool how, you can look at something and think, oh, what is that? But you really have to be able to test the evidence, Pete, get out of that coffin, man. So this is back in David's apartment. Remington camera, you can see it, right? Here's Peter putting his. So where this entity is standing, she's in front of him. There's a big long desk that's there, and there's a computer monitor right there. David is an architectural landscaper, so he had a lot of computer stuff going on there. There's a light, whatever. And Pete's putting his recorder down, his audio recorder down on the desk because we were concentrated on the living room in the next room. So this was right before that one picture of her just standing there with the box. This was right after actually. So the picture of her with the box, the camera takes those photos. Right after that, minutes after that, Pete goes in to put his recorder down. She's right there in his face. Look at that. Right in his face. You see how solid Peter is in the photo. You see the lines of him, but she's like blending in and kind of manifesting, but same face as before, same hairline, the thing that she's wearing. It's crazy, right? When I first saw these, I was like, oh my God, these are the best ghost pictures I've ever seen in my life. And we got them. We took them. And I know that they're real because we did it. You know what I mean? So, like I said, we showed David these photos. He was like, "Oh my God!" He turned pale. He almost passed out. No shit. I gotta end the show. He almost passed out anyway from a couple of things. But there's all of us in the Erie mansion doing our thing, and there's David. That's his aunt. I just wanted to show you. All right, now anyway, I got to end the show because we're going over. Anyway, you know what? I've got a lot more evidence. We're going to do another show because I think it's really cool. And I'm writing a book right now called Our Favorite Haunts, which was just an in-depth kind of what I thought and what we thought about these investigations and what, where, why, when, and all that other stuff. But I'm going to see you guys next week on the show. Hope you had a good time. Hope you have a good week and stay safe, man. You know, there's bad energy out there. I don't know. Just stay safe. Stay safe. I'll see you guys next week on the shoe. Bye.